Well, Kathy, I'm so glad you're here with us. Kathy Jordan's the dietitian at our local Big Y, currently in Maine, but zooming in. And she's a wonderful presenter. And just want to remind you all, we're recording this for cable. So if you'd prefer not to be seen on video, this is a good time to turn your camera off. Kathy, floor is yours.
Oh, great. So I'm going to share my screen. So give me a moment here. Okay, so today's topic is living with diabetes, and we're actually going to use the Big Y supermarket to learn about products and just to introduce various nutrition topics that relate to this topic. So welcome everybody, and once again, thank you for having me. I am one of the consulting dietitians for Big Y supermarkets, which most of you know, because I think you're all local. You have a wonderful store in Walpole. It's one of our larger, to me, it's more like a flagship store. I love going there. And I think a lot of you also know some of the other people like Eddie, our pharmacist over there, who comes and does presentations for you guys or does them virtually as well. So today's topic is on diabetes, but before we get started, if you have questions, it's a small group, so I think we can make it interactive. You can raise your hand if you have a question. You can use the chat box if you want. But with this small group, perhaps we don't need it. And then just so you know, this is a presentation that's really geared to the general public. It is not a specific dietary, it's not medical nutrition therapy. It's just general information about diabetes and shopping for diabetes. So if you have a specific health concern, or you're seeing a dietitian or another healthcare provider specifically about your diet, their advice comes first, okay? All right, so we're just going to go over some of the basics for diabetes. We're going to take you around one of the Big Y stores, and we might even look at some specific products and tips for following a healthy meal plan. If you have any other things you want me to address, once again, raise your hand. And Debbie, I think you're co-hosting with me, so you can help me with that if you see someone raising a hand when I'm busy looking at my slides, okay? All right, so we always like to start with some general nutrition information, and this is the USDA MyPlate. And if you see this, this really applies for healthy eating and works, the whole theory works well with someone that's trying to manage their blood sugar. So if you fill half your plate with produce, like vegetables and fruit, that goes a long way in helping you have a healthy diabetic diet as well. And then, of course, you want to include some whole grains. So you see just a little more than a quarter of the plate is filled with whole grains. And then low-fat dairy or dairy alternative is up in the corner. So those are included as well. And then you want to have some protein, and it doesn't have to be steak and hamburgers all the time. You can certainly have a variety of proteins, some of the lower fat plant-based proteins like legumes and some of the new plant-based products that have come out in the market fit well within a diabetic diet. Eggs, seafood, particularly the fatty fish like salmon, tuna, mackerel. We want to have at least 2 4-ounce servings of that per week. And then poultry and lean red meats, and then other good protein sources or nuts and seeds. Healthy fats, we did talk about the seafood that had healthy fats like salmon and tuna and mackerel. But also nuts and seeds, avocado oil, olives and olive oil are all great sources of healthy fat to include in your diet. And then limiting the amount of sweets, trying not to have sweets in and of themselves, but if you want to have small amounts of sweets, you can talk about that with your personal dietitian, but you want to keep those to a minimum and perhaps include them with a meal as opposed to by themselves. And then red wine in limited amounts. So eating with diabetes. So we want to balance that plate. So you can see this beautiful picture on the right where it shows lots of veggies, some nice healthy grains with some protein up there that looks to me like some scallops with some tomatoes. That looks delicious. It's making me hungry. But anyway, some of the important components besides making sure you have a balance of different types of foods is to also look at portion sizes. Portion sizes are really important. And the new food label that's on most products in the grocery store now, it went into effect January of 2020 for the larger food companies, and the smaller food companies have to be in compliance by this January coming up. But the new food label has more realistic portion sizes. And things like sugars are now spelled out, added sugars on the label. So that's going to be really helpful. But for those people who are counting carbohydrates to manage diabetes, just keep in mind that a serving of carbohydrate equals 15 grams. So that would be the equivalent to like a half a cup of cereal, pasta, any of the starches, a half to 1 cup of fruit, depending on which fruit it is, about a slice of bread, a cup of milk or yogurt. So all those are considered 1 carbohydrate type serving. And then when you eat carbohydrates, it's a good idea to pair it with protein, and that will help keep your blood sugar more even and avoid those spikes. So the protein sources, lean meats, fish and poultry, eggs, cheese, nuts, and seeds, for example. So we talked about the label. So the first thing you want to do when you're in the store or you're online doing your shopping is pull up that nutrition facts label. I know when you're on Instacart, for example, you can pull up the nutrition. You can look at the packaging, and you can see the nutrition facts label. And that's really important when you're trying to manage your blood sugars and choose the foods that are going to fit well within your diet. So what I always like to do is to look at what's the serving size and how many servings are in a container. Okay, so for packaged foods, those two things are really important so you don't make mistakes with your portions. Sometimes you pick up a package and glance at maybe the calories real quick or something, and you're eating, and then you get to the bottom of the package, you turn it over and you go, oh my gosh, that was 2.5 servings. So then you have to multiply everything by 2.5. So number one, look at the serving size and how many servings are in the container. Then you want to look at how much total carbohydrate is in that serving. Okay. All right. So there's an example here of a product that has 14 grams. So that's almost 1 serving. It's close enough. And then some other things that you may want to look at in the new food label would be the added sugars. So this is actually, if you look at that label I have posted here, if there were added sugars, there would be a line right under that now on most products that will tell you how many sugars were added. Okay. And this is a beautiful picture of one of the produce departments at Big Y. One of the things you want to keep in mind when choosing produce is you want to have a variety of colors and types, because the more variety you have, the more likely you are to get all the different nutrients, the different phytochemicals. And phytochemical is just a fancy word for plant chemical. Okay. So there's a lot of chemicals in plants that act like antioxidants to help protect your cells and help reduce your risk for chronic diseases like heart disease, cancers, and things like that. Most fruits and vegetables are high in fiber. Like I said, you get a plethora of nutrients from vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, which are all antioxidants. Some have B vitamins. You get iron and calcium. So, when you think of all the different fruits and vegetables, they don't all have the same nutrients. So whereas one might be high in iron, another one might be high in vitamin E. So it doesn't necessarily always overlap. So that's why it's so important to have a variety. Plus, variety is the spice of life, as we say. It makes your meals more interesting. And if you can add the different colors and texture, it adds the enjoyment of eating. And raise your hand if you enjoy eating. Yeah. So you want to enjoy your food. So take advantage of all the different colors. On Monday, I was working on it today. As a matter of fact, I'm putting together a presentation on celebrate this season with cranberries. And I'll be talking all about cranberries, health and nutrition, and how to use cranberries and how to incorporate them into your diet, how to incorporate them into your holiday meal. So that's Monday afternoon. And at the end, I'll tell you how to get to that. So we want to aim for about 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And a serving is anywhere from 1/2 cup to 1 cup. And they don't all have to be fresh from the produce department. There's a role for canned and frozen and other things similar, dried as well. And then for convenience, there's all these great things in the market now. If you don't have time or you don't have the skill set, you can buy things, or maybe you don't have the equipment, you can buy vegetables that are spiralized, sliced, diced, you name it. So take advantage of those if they fit into your budget. I have more time now, so I'm using less of those things. I'm buying more whole fruits and vegetables and just doing my own thing because I'm home more and I'm cooking a lot more. Anybody cooking a lot more now? Yeah. I think that's our kind of go-to comfort thing sometimes. Okay, but look at these beautiful produce items. I really like some of these packaged salad blends. It's a really good way to boost up. First of all, they're very low in calories and carbohydrates, but for the most part, you're going to be getting some fiber, some calcium, some iron, vitamin C, vitamin A. So try to include lots of different varieties of lettuces. And then in that group, kale and arugula are cruciferous vegetables, and those have been found to have anti-cancer compounds. So you want to hang on one second. Freddie, the dog. Sorry, that's going to be on TV now that I had to have my husband come corral the dog. All right, so isn't that beautiful though, when we talk about the different colors and textures that you can add to your diet? I'm looking at beets over there, really rich in vitamin A, and the carrots as well. But look at the beauty there. This is why, you know, if you might be on a diabetic diet and you might think, oh my gosh, I have to give up my favorite foods or something, but look at what you can have. It's just an opportunity to explore new and different things. I like to encourage people to, in the fresh area, if you just look over to the left side of the screen, it's where you can find all the fresh herbs, which add a lot of nutrients and phytochemicals, antioxidants to your diet as well, and add tons of flavor to food. So, all right, so carbohydrates in produce. So it really varies. Things like spinach, kale, those are very low in carbohydrates. Berries are lower in terms of fruit, melon. It's all about portion control. And then when you get to the starchy vegetables, you get a little bit more carbohydrate. So there's a really good visual there to show you the portion sizes. And the other thing is, if you really have a large potato or sweet potato, you can always cut it in half. So that's a good way of keeping your portions. So when you go to the market now, sometimes it seems like the vegetables are gigantic, right? And so that might be equal to more than one serving. So you may have to cut them in half. But starchy vegetables have a role in a diabetic diet. You just need to watch your portions. But certainly when you think about potatoes and sweet potatoes and winter squash, we're talking about lots of vitamin A, which is an antioxidant, which is really good for skin and eye health as well as heart health. So you don't want to be cutting these things out altogether. You just need to watch your portions. And this time of year, I think we tend to eat these more often. I know I already bought my butternut squash for Thanksgiving dinner. I have a sweet potato. I bought one of those purple sweet potatoes because I like to have fun with my food. I bought one of those the other day as well. So have fun with the food, watch your portions, but certainly enjoy all the wonderful things that are available this time of year in your local market. Whether you go there or you order them online, you can take advantage of those. And then don't forget the role of dried and canned fruit. What you want to watch for when you get into the dried fruits is added sugars. And you may need to watch total carbohydrate as well, because of course you're taking a regular sized fruit and then you're condensing it down. So whereas you might have eaten 1 or 2 apricots, it's really easy to eat a half a bag of dried apricot halves, isn't it? So just want to be careful of the serving size. So check your package. It's generally about 2 tablespoons for things like cranberries or raisins. And Decus Farms, that's right there on the screen, they also have a lower sugar cranberry. Okay, so I think a couple of the other companies do too, but I know that theirs is just less sugar and it doesn't have any artificial sweeteners added to it. And I've bought that and I've used it in recipes and added it to top of salads in the past. Cereals, here's a good opportunity to get some whole grains in your diet. Oatmeal is a great cereal to have because it has beta glucan in it, which is a prebiotic fiber that helps you manage your blood sugar and it's also been shown to help with managing cholesterol and heart health. So starting your day off with oatmeal or a dry cereal that perhaps is oatmeal based And then the main things in the cereal aisle are looking at the label and checking for added sugars. Okay, so you don't want to have too many added sugars. I generally aim for a cereal that has less than 10 grams. The other thing that may be of concern to some of you is the sodium content. So if you're on a low sodium diet, you also want to look at the sodium. And anything that has 20% or higher of the daily value, which is down the right side of the panel, would be considered high for sodium. All right, and then the other thing is you might want to just look at the ingredient declaration. So you see the Quaker oats there, and on the picture on the right, when you go all the way down the bottom, under the nutrition facts panel, it has ingredients. So that's where you want to look. And this particular product just has oatmeal, but some cereals have tons of ingredients, and you may just want to take a look at what those are. But you want the first ingredient to be some kind of whole grain like oats, whole wheat, quinoa, sorghum, something like that. And then be careful of the pre-packaged instant varieties of cereals because they're often very high in sugar. Okay, so it's better to, if you're going to use an instant oatmeal, which is fine, get the plain one and add like your own fruit. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and cardamom add sweetness without adding any added sugar. So that's another idea. But I like to put nuts and fruit in my oatmeal. And then this is a really good example. If you look in almost the middle of the screen, if you look down, you can actually see where it says total sugars and then included added sugars. Can you see that line? That's where you want to look to see how much sugar is added. So for this product, the total sugars are 2 grams. And then it says added is 2 grams. So that means all the sugar that's in this product was in there in the first place. It wasn't added during processing. It's probably a part of the makeup of the ingredients oats. Okay. Has some natural sugar in it. And then something like Raisin Bran is going to have more sugar because it has raisins added, and sometimes those raisins may have a little bit of sugar coating on them as well. So that's where you want to look for that. And you can also look for grams of fiber, see how much protein is in the product. So there's protein added to the product, 15 grams. And then, of course, they've called out that it has magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D. So that's just, we have a whole presentation on label reading, by the way. It's really interesting. I'd like to talk about some of the marketing terms, what's recognized by FDA, what's not. That's a really good presentation too, Debbie, thinking down the road. All right, so grains. We want to make half of the total grains you consume in a day. So that includes things like breads, cereals, crackers, side dishes like pastas, rice, that kind of thing. Half of those in any given day, you should shoot for like half of them to be whole grain. All right, so there's a whole bunch of products out in the market that make that easier. There's a bunch of whole grain breads. Remember I said the first ingredient should be some kind of whole grain, but now there's whole grain pasta, brown rice and quinoa are good options. Anybody try any interesting whole grains recently? Anything different? Anybody have anything with sorghum or millet or farro or anything like that? Oh, okay. Well, if you go over to the Walpole Big Y and look at the bulk aisle, this is one of my favorite things when I used to go do the in-store tours, is to show people that you can get from the bulk aisle just a small amount of some new grain that you haven't tried before. Like maybe you want to try red quinoa. So you go over there and you get a little bit and you give it a shot and see if you like it. This way you don't have to buy a great big package. If you find you like it, you can get more from the bulk aisle, or you can go over to the grain aisle or the natural section where it says living well, eating smart, and you can get bigger packages of whatever that grain is that you determine you like. But that's a good way of trying them. The other tip is to try to find something that has at least 2 to 3 grams of fiber per serving, and then check that serving size again, because that might vary a little bit. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. So this is just a way of getting a lower calorie bread. So if you're trying to watch your carbohydrates, and your favorite bread maybe has, 20 something grams of carbohydrate and you're looking for something a little bit less, you can try one of these lower calorie, thinner sliced breads, but check your carbohydrates and see how that fits in. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ones out on the market. So this one, 2 slices is only 90 calories. That's the equivalent to 1 slice of many other breads that are on that shelf. Okay. Some other examples, things that have, extra fiber in them. So some of these have 7 grams of fiber. That does not necessarily mean they're whole grain, though. They might just have fiber added to them in the form of cellulose, which is a fiber that's added to a lot of foods to boost up the fiber, and it really is plant pulp, is what that is. So I would try to go more for the whole grains. Okay, and then the other thing to be careful of is the size of a particular item. So like just something like a taco or a pita bread or a wrap. You see how they come in all different sizes and thickness, and that can really vary what you're going to get for nutrition content. So check the serving size. Sometimes they'll have something that like a wrap or a pita, and you think it's 1 serving, and if you turn the package over, it says it's 2. So keep that in mind. And that's going to, if that's 2 servings, then you have to double what that says for carbohydrate. Okay. And then, cauliflower and legumes and things like that, and some of these whole grains are really, really popular to add to foods. So you just want to check the ingredient label. So ingredients are listed in descending order by weight. So this is called cauliflower pasta with fava beans and rice flour. Now I don't know how well you can see that, but can you see the ingredient list? Can anybody tell me what the first ingredient is? Can you read that? Debbie?
Flour. It's white rice flour.
Yep. Yeah. So Janet, I don't know if you can see that really well, but the first ingredient listed there is white rice flour. What does that tell you? Oh, I think you're muted, Janet. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
It just means that cauliflower is not the mainstay of that pasta.
Right. And what is white rice flour? Would that be a whole grain?
No.
No, that's a refined grain. So where that may be, and that's perfectly fine if you love this product and you want to fit it in your diet, but just fit it in the context of it's not really a whole grain. Don't know how much cauliflower is actually in there, because cauliflower is great for you, as you know. But if you like it and it's fun and you want to include it, there's nothing wrong with that. But just don't include it thinking, oh my God, this is my whole grain serving at dinner time. Okay.
Or your vegetable.
Yeah, maybe it's hard to tell how much cauliflower is actually in there and how many fava beans are actually in there, because it doesn't tell you the exact percentage of white rice flour, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could just, I know when those like spinach pastas and stuff first came out, there was hardly any vegetable in there. It was mostly just wheat flour. Okay, so this is where you can look at your whole product. There's 2 grams of dietary fiber. That's okay. I mean, that's for a 2-ounce serving. Most of us tend to eat a little bit more of that, so just be careful with your serving size on that. The good news is there is 7 grams of protein. So remember what we said about protein helps you moderate your blood sugars a little bit. So that's good news about that. The product also has no sodium and no cholesterol, some other good things to keep in mind. So you want to look at the whole thing. Look at the nutrition facts label, look at the ingredient declaration, make a decision. But it is fun to try new products, and I actually have bought this Barilla red lentil pasta several times now. And it works really well. It's a little bit firmer than regular pasta, so it doesn't get as soft. So if you like a little more texture to your pasta, that would be great. And it's a good way to get legumes. And I don't think you can see that label really well. I can see it, so maybe you can. 13 grams of protein. Wow. That's equivalent to 2 eggs. So keep that in mind. So some other ways of getting some extra protein. I have not tried the chickpea rotini. That looks good too. I think I'll have to try that next time. Okay.
I have tried that. That's good.
Oh, is it? Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Banza also makes a chickpea.
okay. So look at, you have a lot of different products out on the market now that can help you. If you don't like to traditionally eat legumes, this might be a way of getting some legumes and some good plant-based protein into your diet. Snack foods. You want to limit the amount of highly processed snack foods only because it's so hard to keep your portions under control. And a lot of them have extra salt and sodium. So, yeah, so the American Heart Association recommends keeping your added sugars down to 6 teaspoons a day for women and 9 for men. So this is where it really becomes important to keep the portion size down. So if the product had 24 grams of sugar added and the package actually had 3 servings and you ate the whole package, you'd really be getting a ton of sugar all at once, which would make it really hard for managing your blood sugar and your weight most likely. So I'm going to skip this one. That was just because something is reduced fat doesn't mean it makes that much difference. You really have to check your labels. Sugars and sweeteners. There's for those of you who are watching sugar intake, but you'd like to add a little bit of sweetness, there's a variety of artificial sweeteners, non-nutritive natural sweeteners, and then different sugars out on the market. So Truvia that you see there and stevia are what we consider non-nutritive natural sweeteners that come from a plant. And then there's the artificial sweeteners like Sweet and Low, you see there, Equal, which are either aspartame or there's acetylsulfame K, and there's a numerous artificial sweeteners. I think it's best if you can try to get your taste buds used to less sweetness, because having a lot of sweet foods perpetuates that desire for sweet foods. So if you can kind of back off. I did an experiment on myself years ago. I cut out all added sugars for several weeks. And then what I found from that was that things started tasting sweeter. Like I made some turnip and I was eating it and I said, oh my gosh, I can taste the sweetness, which I had never noticed before. So you can retrain your taste buds. But sometimes you want to have something a little bit sweet. So either have a smaller portion of something that's naturally sweetened in the context of a meal, or, you know, sometimes you could include a small amount of some of these non-nutritive sweeteners into your diet. I would just, like I said, I would suggest cutting back on those as much as you can, and look for ways to just using fruit or some spices to flavor your foods. Okay. This is another sweetener. I personally have not tried this. It is a sugar alcohol, so I don't know for tolerance how that would go. If for some people, any kind of sugar, I don't think that is a sugar alcohol actually. I'm not really that familiar with this one. It says it's keto friendly. It's obviously you can see how low the carbohydrates are, but that will add sweetness as well. I will have to look into this one. Andrea, are you on the call? I was checking to see if one of the other dietitians was on the call to ask what they know about allulose, since I have not used it yet. Has anybody used this product yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Oh, well. Okay. Dairy. The reason why you want to include dairy into your diet, or something that closely resembles dairy in its uses, is that it's really where we get most of our calcium and vitamin D, and it also provides a good source of protein. There's been some research that shows that dairy products can help you manage your weight and your appetite. So alternatives to dairy, if you don't want to have dairy in your diet, or you don't like dairy, or you have a lactose intolerance, there are other products. Soy milk is probably the closest in terms of the nutrient contribution, particularly the protein, because a cup of milk has about 8 grams, and so does a cup of soy. The other milks, like almond milk, for example, cashew milk, those kinds of things, they only have maybe 2 grams of protein. They are fortified with calcium and vitamin D for the most part. But that would be an alternative. And then there's some high protein, lower sugar milks, like the two listed here, Organic Valley Ultra and Fairlife, which have 10 to 13 grams of protein per cup and only about 6 grams of carbohydrate. Regular milk has 12. And then yogurt is great to add to your diet, but you want to look for the added sugars. So there's a bunch now that came out that are lower sugar, like the Chobani, less sugar. Typically, Icelandic Provisions and Siggy's tend to be lower in sugar. And then Faye came out with True Blend, which is low in sugar. Or you can just get plain, like Greek or Icelandic yogurt, which are both higher in protein than regular yogurt, and just add fruit and nuts and a little bit of cardamom. Cardamon's like my favorite spice, because it adds a little sophistication to your food. And it's so subtle, and has anybody tried it? It's my secret ingredient in baked goods, just so you know. Okay. So you can see on this, the whole nutrition facts panel looks different, doesn't it? That's because of the shape of the package. So you have to kind of scroll through, but you can see that in this Chobani yogurt, it's only 5 grams of added sugar. And just to put that into context, a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. So it's about a teaspoon of sugar in there. Some of the yogurts have 20, 30 grams of sugar. Just for comparison. And this stuff tastes good, as does the Siggy's and the Icelandic Provisions and some of the other ones I mentioned. Then there's the one that have like stevia in them, like Oikos, I believe is sweetened with stevia. So then the sugar content's going to be really low. Too Good is another one that is very low in carbohydrate. It only has 2 grams of sugar, I believe. And I think most of that coming from stevia. And then earlier I mentioned it doesn't have to be all fresh produce. You can use frozen fruits and veggies. What you want to do is probably stick to the plain ones as much as possible and avoid the highly processed. There are some interesting things like the cauliflower pizza crust, which you can make from scratch if you're so inclined, or you can buy one of the ones that are already made, but just check your label and check the carbohydrate, check the sodium. But that might be something, that might be a product that would help you lower your carbohydrate when you have a pizza craving. But once again, just read your labels on the processed food. Okay. There's some interesting somewhat processed foods that I do recommend, and that's some of those riced veggies, like riced cauliflower. If you buy the plain frozen riced cauliflower, it lasts a lot longer than the fresh riced cauliflower, and that can substitute for starchier things like rice in recipes. So that might be worth a try. Then there's foods that really don't contain any carbohydrate, and that would be like cheese, meats, chicken, fish. Okay. We talked about the salmon already, so I'm going to skip that. When you choose meat, you want to choose the leanest cuts. For example, pork tenderloin is a lot leaner than a pork chop. Okay. Generally with beef, if it says sirloin, it's generally lower, but you also want to look at the package too. And if you see a lot of marbling, you know that's going to be high in saturated fat. And diabetes is highly correlated with metabolic syndrome and heart disease. So you don't want to have a lot of saturated fat in your diet. Processed meats are not recommended to be included very often, only because they tend to be really high in salt and fat. So that's things like bacon, sausage, pepperoni, those kinds of things. So you want to keep those down to a minimum. Eggs are fine. I think the current recommendation is 1 egg a day, or, averaging out to 1 egg a day is acceptable for most people. Eggs are an excellent source of protein, and they have a couple of nutrients that are really good for eye health, lutein and zeaxanthin. So in summary, for a healthy diet or someone that's trying to manage their blood sugars, you want to have plenty of plant foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and then keep an eye on the portion sizes. If you're carbohydrate counting, use the food label and look at the serving size and the number of grams of carbohydrate per serving size. Include lean protein because you need that for overall health, maintaining muscle and muscle mass. And then be aware of the added sugars, which is now a lot easier now that they added that to the food label. What would you do if you picked up a product, had the old food label, and it didn't tell you how much added sugar was in there? Here's your little quiz. What would you do?
Probably put it back on the shelf.
That's one idea. Is there another way to determine if there's added sugar in the product?
The ingredients?
Yeah, look at the ingredients. A little secret is words that end in OSE generally are sugars. So dextrose, sucrose, lactulose. Okay, when you see those kind of OSE, or you see the word syrup, or concentrated some kind of fruit juice, so that usually tips you off that. And if that's near the top of the ingredient list, you know that that's a product that's probably high in sugar. There are still some products out there that haven't converted to the new label, so you may see those. Okay, and there's some resources here. Of course, FDA and USDA have tons of information on diet. The American Diabetes Association has lots of information. Eatright.org, which is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, formerly known as the American Dietetic Association, which all of us are registered dietitians at Big Y, and we're members of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and there's lots of resources there as well. And okay, so we have free nutrition coaching sessions. My hours are Mondays afternoons, and each section is 15 minutes. People can just sign up for those. And as I mentioned, we have a whole bunch of other nutrition presentations that are open to the public at bigY.com/livingwell/getsocial. If you want, Debbie, I can send you that link right there if you want to share that with people, because like I said, there's everything from label reading to heart healthy eating. I saw that Jackie Duran in December has one, I think it was on healthy holidays. I'm doing one on how to set realistic lifestyle and nutrition goals at the end of December to get people ready for the new year. So there's always something fun. So if you don't have that link already, I can send that to you. You can share that out. But office hours are free, those little sessions for nutrition information about recipes, shopping, anything along that line that we can help people with. It's not really like medical nutrition therapy where you would go for, an appointment with a registered dietitian very specific to a dietary prescription. It's more general nutrition information for people. Any questions, comments? So Debbie, I think we plan 2 more of these coming up, one in January and one in February, is it? I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have maintaining healthy weight, and then I think heart health.
Yes.
In February.
Yeah, I think we did weight in January because everybody's thinking about that. And then heart health, February is heart health month. So that's why we did that. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. And this is wonderful that it's going to be broadcast so many people can get to look at it. So
yeah, and I'll be sure to share all this information in our weekly e-news that goes out. I think that's a wonderful resource, being able to take care of free nutrition counseling and these sessions that you have online. That's wonderful.
And this will be online too, so people can catch the link there.
Yes.
And then
I'll share this you as well.
Yeah, maybe you could share the link to that broadcast for me. I think that
I
would be fun to
absolutely
share,
will.
share with my colleagues at Big Y. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
Like
you.
I
Thank
said,
you, Kathy.
if you have additional nutrition
Great.
questions, sign up for one of those office hours. If it doesn't, my time doesn't work, Jackie Duran and Jackie Campbell have different times during the week. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Kathy.
Thank you and have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
I know.